This is like chef food in under 45 minutes at home. The chef is my mom. Hey, it's Eric Kim. I'm a food columnist for the New York Times, and today's a very special day because I'm gonna show you my mother's kimchi jjigae with ribs. Jjigae means stew in Korean, and kimchi jjigae is kind of like the standard stew that's often on a Korean table once a week. This recipe does only take 45 minutes from start to finish. It's kind of a weeknight stew. And this is sort of a variation that my mom made for us growing up, and I don't really know if I've ever had it outside of my mother's house. I wrote a whole cookbook about her, with her. I'm very sentimental. I'm kind of like my dad. My mother she's not cold, but she's just not a sentimental person. I don't think she experiences 감동 in the same way that a lot of other people do. 감동 means like when you're touched by something. It's like when something cheesy happens on network television and then like a single tear runs down your face. My mom doesn't do that. She's not that kind of person. She is someone who is very precise and very confident in her cooking, and she's also very creative in the kitchen. And one thing I've always said about my mother is that my food will always be an evolution of hers. And I think this recipe shows all the little steps that make a kimchi jjigae just a little more extraordinary than the kind that you might have at a restaurant. So the first step is just simmering the ribs, and then we're gonna rinse them off. This is 1.5 pounds of baby back ribs. You wanna give them a bath. Let's just put this in the pot. According to my mom, boiling the ribs with a little ginger gets out any potential gaminess. I call for a 3-inch piece. You don't have to be that precise, but you know, that's about 3 inches. I think the recipe calls for like slicing it, but I'm gonna show you how I do it now. I like to expose it by like cutting off these ends, and then all I do is I cut this in half. It's not that weird, but I like to just like put these whole in there. Another thing that I do differently in this recipe than written is I keep the ginger in the pot to like simmer with the broth later. First, we're gonna go to the sink and fill this with water. Cold water, just cover it. Again, this is just the initial bath. You're sort of just blanching the ribs, and you'll see all the stuff that comes out. Just bring it to a boil, and then we're only gonna simmer this for like 10 minutes, not very long. You know how in French cooking or like a lot of Western style cooking, the meat is just cooked directly into things. But when you're doing like Korean soups and stews, there's often a step of blanching the meat first and then rinsing it off, or maybe like soaking the meat in water. It just makes sure that the final product is unadulterated. Let's do all our chopping ahead of time. The one final step of this recipe is a little thinly sliced onion, but it's at the very end. So I'm gonna do it now and put it aside. This onion is so cute. I think I want to cut it as thinly as I can. Garlic, shallot, none of that's the same. Onion has like that pure sweet umami that just forms the backbone of this particular kimchi jjigae. Like if you can't see through it, then it's not thin enough. Look at these onions, gorgeous. Let me just check my ribs. See, so it hasn't even come to a boil yet, but that's all the stuff we're gonna throw out. I think the flavor of onion is really important. I've had many moments actually in my life where I've started making this stew and at the end realized that I don't have onion. Gone out to get the onion. It's like really important. While that still comes to a boil, I'm gonna chop the kimchi. You don't have to. You can just put this jarred kimchi, they're like these little pieces, which are pretty bite-sized, but I love the way it eats when you chop up the kimchi. It's just more refined. It sort of like enrobes the ribs in a nicer way than if you leave them whole like this. But you wanna like, in order to not have a bloodbath on the cutting board, you just wanna drain the kimchi a little bit before you cut it. My mom at home, she almost doesn't even add any other seasonings or ingredients because her kimchi tastes so good by itself. So it'll be like pork and kimchi and that's all she needs, maybe a little water. I'm just gonna chop this like pretty fine, to be honest. A kimchi is fermented and ripe when you smell it, and it has like that pickly smell. And when you taste it, it's like a little sour. This has a great fermentation on it. I'm gonna show you a bunch of other ingredients that really amp up the kimchi-ness of this dish. This has been going for enough, so I'm gonna turn it off. I'm gonna bring it over to the sink and kind of drain off that scum, as beautiful as it is. I actually like to skim off the scum and then turn it into shortbread cookies. Just kidding. I know this might seem like a waste of like, pretty flavorful broth, but trust me, it's worth it. I mean, it's like not the most beautiful image. I really believe in it as well. I think it makes a big difference. And now she just like rinses them. Man, Korean moms love rinsing things. These ribs are not 100% cooked, yet we've gotten them started. And I just don't want some of this stuff to be like in the final broth. You don't have to, but I'm I'm gonna like wipe out this pot because it just has some stuff in it that I don't really want. See how there's like still like some stuff? I'm not like meticulously going in. We're just gonna dirty this again, so. Okay, we're now building our jjigae. This is the fun part. This is where we're like layering things. I'm going to turn this on. I'm gonna put it on low. And I'm gonna melt a tablespoon of butter. Just 1 tablespoon of butter does a lot to round out the edges of this otherwise sharp and savory dish. And I really like what it does. So I'm melting the butter. What I'm also doing is kind of creating a gochugaru butter, chili peppers, these amazing things in that fat. At the end of the stewing process, this jjigae is gonna have a gorgeous bright red sheen pool of that fat. That fat is so flavorful. So it's a nice like flavor base. Kind of create a paste or something. I'm not that precious about it, but you can already see where the butter is like leaving trails of red. The pepper is very delicate. Like as soon as I can, I'm gonna actually grab the kimchi. I don't want this to burn, but I've already created a gorgeous gochugaru oil. The kimchi goes in now, including all the juices. I think a lot of recipes call for like sauteing the kimchi, but I don't really do that because I'm trying to maximize like that bright, fresh kimchi flavor. I can just add the water now. And this is gonna provide all the water we need. Oh, so pretty, right? So gorgeous. I love how red it is. We're gonna try to keep this redness. I think a lot of kimchi jjigaes are like overcooked, in my opinion. But this is really a fresh iteration of the dish. It's so magical. And the ginger, don't forget the ginger. The ginger adds a lot. So one thing is, even though the kimchi is flavorful and we're gonna add fish sauce later, which has a lot of sodium, you know, and umami, I'm also adding salt. It just does something that fish sauce alone doesn't. The salt amplifies all the gentle flavors that are already here. Sometimes I'll forget the salt and I'll take a bite at the table and be like, oh, I forgot the salt. You need salt. I think now that it's come to a simmer, I'm just gonna cover it and let it go for like 5 to 7 minutes. So with this recipe, it's gonna seem like there are all these like little like adjustments, but I think I like this recipe because it teaches how important it is to adjust the heat as you go, and like it's all written out for you, but over time, I hope that kind of thing becomes more intuitive to you. What this has been doing right now is continuing to cook the ribs, also like mellowing out the kimchi, and then the next thing that we're gonna do is add the onion, and the onion serves a big purpose. One thing that's important about this stew is you don't want too much liquid to escape, so the covering of the pot is really important. Wow, did you see that? It smells so good right now, it's so red. It's almost done actually, but there isn't that much liquid right now. Once I add the onion, it's gonna sort of leach out its liquid. I like to like almost like tamp it down so that it's touching the broth. And I'm gonna cover it right away again and simmer it for 10 to 15 more minutes. So 10, 15 minutes later, sorry. It's been about like 8 minutes. We're gonna give it a couple more minutes, but I wanted to show you what it looks like. Right? Isn't there way more liquid than there used to be? Can you tell? And look at that, all that gochugaru oil right there. Amazing. So at this stage, what I do is I like to taste it, just to see where I'm at. So savory, so awesome. We haven't even added the fish sauce. That's just purely from like the onion and garlic and the ribs themselves. But you want a tablespoon each of fish sauce and this ingredient called meshichong. Fish sauce adds savoriness. This is meshichong. This is the weird ingredient. It comes in this bottle. It's a green plum syrup, and Korean green plums, meshu, they're this really beautiful, very special fruit. It has that like tart, tannic thing going. They add fruitiness, a little tartness, and it's my mom's secret ingredient. If you don't have this, or if you really can't find it at the Korean store, you could always add a pinch of sugar. I love adding a little bit of fresh gochugaru at the end. We use this powder. There's sort of like a finer gochugaru. But I think for this final step, I'm gonna use the coarse gochugaru. This is usually what I buy. It looks like jewels, right? Little rubies. They're very shiny. As that sits in the liquid, it's also gonna kind of release more of the juices and make this thing even redder. I kind of want it spicy. I'm gonna add a little more, yeah. And then let's do a final taste. It's so good. I think I'm really happy with this. I'm gonna add a little salt though. I want all those flavors that we just really carefully brought out, right? I mean, if I'm bringing it to the table, I like the ribs to be like sticking out a little bit. I want people to know what's there. I might actually take out the ginger actually, because it's done. So this is the last step. You don't have to do this. My mom likes to add some greens to the top. I think watercress is a really delicious option. She does watercress. I just like to add like a huge pile of it on top like that. It's just a nice look. In fact, I'm gonna take a picture of it. This jjigae is like my lifeblood. It's so pretty to me. We're gonna clean up a little bit and then eat this jjigae. I'm so hungry, I'm really excited. Let's go. I'm very pleased with this. It honestly didn't take that long, right? Just being really purposeful about each step means you're really scaffolding flavor. And so that first bite of broth, it's fun to watch people's reaction to it. It's like, it does so much. This with a bowl of rice is just the perfect meal. Sorry, I wanted to show you that because it's fall off the bone. And I don't know, Koreans love just like being able to chew on the meat and having all the flavor from that meat just like gush into your mouth. It's pretty freaking delicious. And one really special thing about this dish is pork and kimchi are just a match made in heaven. They're such a classic combination for a reason. That broth, it's so like gentle and sweet from the pork. This is obviously not your mama's kimchi jjigae, but it's my mom's. And I hope you love it. I'm excited for y'all to taste it because it's just one of my favorite bites of food in the world. Happy Mother's Day. One way to really honor our mothers on a day like Mother's Day is to cook their recipes and to cook their food and learn how they make it. You're able to, with your hands, like kinetically feel all those hours that they've cooked for you, a certain dish. For this recipe and many more, go to nytcooking.com. And also go online and read the piece that I wrote about my mom. It's one of my favorite things I've written for her.